Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable Drive. Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable Drive.
All right, I'm definitely going to go to hell for that.
Jane. Oh, and you know what? I don't have a mind. I know it's going to be later on the show, but Lakeshore Drive, Jean Baptiste Drive. I mean, it's fine with me. I don't care. It's just a name. There's one thing that won't change, and that is the S-curve crashes that happen on that roadway. So if you're not from Chicago, just be careful. But again, one thing that won't change: accidents on Lakeshore Drive and that S-curve. That S-curve is the death nail for a lot of cars. So please be safe when you are driving on.
That S-curve is what always kills me when I'm heading into the city and I feel like I've got a lead on time. You get to the Lakeshore or the Michigan Avenue flow through, and then it's like it becomes a parking lot. And talking about everybody, it's a dangerous spot.
The S-curve is the Fury Road. There we go. In fact, maybe that's what Lakeshore Drive should be called, the Fury Road.
Road?
Maybe.
Well, we've got a poll on our Facebook Hardlands Media page, so I would advise all of our viewers to go there and chime in, because we're going to talk about the Lakeshore Drive proposal more towards the end of the show after we cover more hard-hitting Chicago news. I have some possibly unpopular opinions about it, but I do enjoy hearing what everyone has to think about, and I do have reasons for some of the reasons I feel the way I do. So we can chat about that later in the show. In the meantime, it's a beautiful start to a spring weekend. I've got the wonderful Kit Cabello joining me tonight. It's good to have you on again. Have you gotten your COVID vaccination?
Yes, I got both the vaccinations. So have a few of my other relatives. It's just what I want to say is just look, everyone be safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We're still not out of the woods yet. And I understand why some people are afraid to take the vaccination. It's just we got to work together on this because it's not over yet. And together we can beat this thing. But it's just it is what it is.
Well, it's not over yet. You're right. And before we go into that story, I'm going to talk about some other breaking news and also to mention I did get my second COVID shot. And unlike a lot of people I've spoken with who had side effects, I had no side effects whatsoever. I had it on Wednesday.
I didn't have anything.
Yeah, I think, well, then we got good family genes helping us. That and the fact that I think I might have some bat DNA, given the fact I like to sometimes imagine I'm like Batman or I follow, what would Batman do? So, with everybody talking about bats infecting COVID, maybe that's the reason I'm a little bit better.
Well, there is the thing of the fact that the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight, Batman Begins and the Dark Knight movies did take place in Chicago.
Yes.
In the early 2000s. So maybe that also kind of helped out too. I don't know. Well, I'm not a medical expert here, folks. I just know some things about pop culture, just a little bit.
I think Chicago is Gotham as far as the corruption, and it's too bad we don't have a Batman, but that's a whole other fun pop culture conversation. I got to move my cat before he knocks down my laptop here. Come on, baby. He's climbing all over the place because he's excited. So yeah, it's we're gonna have some fun tonight. We got a lot of stories. It's a good hair day for me, so I'm very happy. I wanted to start the show with something. We get a lot of our news from Block Club Chicago because they really do cover a lot of great stuff in Chicago. And just this evening, I discovered they followed up on a story that we covered in March. Actually, it was my first opportunity to go on the air regarding the General Iron Recycling Plant. And I want to give our audience an update because we did cover the activist protests that happened in March. City delays permit for Southeast Side metal scrapper after EPA says another polluter raises significant civil rights concerns. This was reported by Maxwell Evans and Mauricio Pena. An EPA official urged Mayor Lori Lightfoot to not issue a permit for Southside recycling until the city completes a robust analysis of ambient air quality data from Chicago's Southeast Side. Echoing arguments long made by neighbors and activists Regan said the glut of heavy polluting industry on the southeast side, the poor environmental conditions, and the lack of oversight epitomized the problems of environmental injustice resulting from more than a half century of prior actions. For more than a year, Southsiders have fought to block Southside recycling from opening at Burleigh Avenue. 11 people participated in a 1-month hunger strike that ended March 4th with a rally near Lightfoot's home, which is what we covered, along with Casey, our videographer. Community members, leaders, and activists that lay on the street at Logan Square to call on Mayor Lightfoot to deny the permit to move General Iron to the southeast side on the 30th day of the hunger strike took place on March 4th, 2021. So it's not a full denial of the permit, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think a lot of this was the result of the activist activity and that protest that ended up happening at Mayor Lightfoot's house, because these Southside activists have been working very, very hard to get the EPA's attention. And what's interesting there too is this recycling plant began building without the permit because they figured it was going to be a shoo-in at all these hearings. That's the Chicago way, right? And thankfully the EPA stepped in.
Well, I'm glad that we're seeing something, but if I had to give a message to the activists right now is don't let up. The pressure campaign is working, and it's good, because the thing is, on the south side and on the west side areas of Chicago, a lot of working class communities, low income communities are hit hard, and they have these heavy industrial facilities built in these neighborhoods. And, what a sight it would be if our fellow Northsiders would stand in solidarity with us too and say, hey, look, these are Chicagoans. We don't, our communities, especially on the south and west side, need help. Like, if you live in Chicago, start off with a trip on the way end of the north side and drive all the way down to the south side, and you'll see things change drastically. You'll see communities change. And the thing is, it's a lot of resources and opportunities and rights are being denied to the people in the south and west side neighborhoods. I'm a Southsider, and it's very sad seeing this kind of stuff happen. And I want to remind everyone that there is another facility on the south side, Matt Asphalt Plant, that was built in 2018 by a 70-acre green space, McKinley Park, right next to 2 schools, condos, apartments, homes. And this facility is operating still without a permit. And an asphalt plant releases particulate matter. And what particulate matter does, it impacts the heart, brains, and lungs. It impacts senior citizens and young people. And there's a lot of truck traffic going in and out. And there are 2 schools by this asphalt facility. And it's interesting to point out that Mayor Lightfoot and Governor J.B. Pritzker both ran on strong environmental protections. And Governor J.B. Pritzker himself also took a photograph by the community garden that's in McKinley Park. And right behind him, or at least before it got built, was the Matt Asphalt Plant. And they are still operating without a permit as well.
Well, this is crazy, because to build anything near a residential neighborhood, I don't understand where their brains are. And when you talk about the North Side community, they're the ones who wanted General Iron out of Lincoln Park because they were close to Lincoln Park. So naturally, the city decides to move them near a residential neighborhood on the south side that's not as affluent. We've got so much industrial space along the south shore of Lake Michigan that a place like this could go to, as long as there are environmental protections for the lake. The south side is just not being heard in what's happening here, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And again, like the one group that's really standing up to the Matt Asphalt Plant, I want to give a plug to them. They're called the Neighbors for Environmental Justice. Please help them out, because they're, it's just something that we need to remember. And we got E. Heller here. Says the EPA doing their job. Wow. Much wow.
It's a nice change. So shifting into Illinois, we've talked about Governor Pritzker just now, and this week Governor Pritzker announced that he wants Illinois to go into phase 5, a relative return to normal, as soon as June 11th. This comes from Kelly Bauer at Block Club Chicago. Under phase 5, there are no capacity limits on businesses. The economy is fully reopened, and large gatherings of all sizes can return, though people will still be expected to wear masks and follow other safety precautions when appropriate. The move comes as the majority of adult Illinoisans, about 60% as of Thursday, have gotten at least 1 shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Officials said vaccinations have slowed down recently, but they need to continue for the pandemic to truly end. At the same time, the number of people being hospitalized with COVID has dropped. That's a relief. As a result, on May 14th, the state will move into the bridge phase of its mitigation plan, Pritzker said at a news conference. That means capacity limits will be loosened for many businesses. And so long as Illinois doesn't see an uptick in its COVID-19 metrics, the state will move into phase 5 as soon as June 11th. Similarly, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said earlier this week she hopes to see Chicago fully open by early July. This good news comes with a caveat. We all have seen throughout this pandemic that this virus and its variants have proven to be unpredictable, Pritzker said. Metrics that look strong today are far from a guarantee of how things will look a week, 2 weeks, a month from now. What we do know is we have the tools in our arsenal, like vaccinations and wearing masks, that if we all use them, have proven extremely effective. Pritzker said millions more Illinoisans need to get vaccinated. People who haven't been able to get a shot yet can call the state's free hotline at 833-621-1284 or go online to get help finding a provider. Summer is coming, said Dr. Ngozi Ezeki, head of the Illinois Department of Public Health. Let's take the necessary steps now so we can enjoy the summer as it arrives. Wear your mask and get your shots. Illinois and Chicago have administered at least 9,646,432 vaccine doses of the 12,247,735 provided to them. So this is great, hopeful news. In the meantime, this comes in from the San Diego Tribune. San Diego County records first COVID-19 case with variant detected in India. I don't know if you've read, but they've got the worst outbreak in India right now, and they're under pressure for the entire country to lock down. San Diego County has recorded its first COVID-19 case caused by the same variant, suspected of overwhelming India, according to the region's top public health official. During an update to the County Board of Supervisors Tuesday, Dr. Wilma Wooten, San Diego's public health officer, said that the case came to her department's attention on April 29th. A county representative clarified after Wooten's statement that the infection involved a woman in her 20s who had no other medical problems upon her return to San Diego from India in late March. She was hospitalized in early April. Many obvious questions remain about the region's first case of B1.617, the viral variant thought to be driving India's heartbreaking surge of COVID-19 cases that has caused a spike in deaths as many healthcare systems become overwhelmed and unable to supply enough supplemental oxygen to meet demand. A county representative clarified after Wooten's statements that the infection involved a woman in her 20s who had no other medical problems upon her return to San Diego from India in late March. She was hospitalized in early April. The county health department did not disclose whether the woman was vaccinated when she became infected, nor how many close contacts she had before testing positive, nor whether she remains hospitalized. The long lag time between when the patient was hospitalized and when the health department was notified that the India variant was the cause is explained, a representative said, by long lead times for genetic sequencing. And I also want to mention there's been talk of President Biden restricting travel next week from India, which will be interesting considering how many people were upset that Trump wanted to shut down travel last year, which I actually think, as much as I'm no Trump fan, was a wise decision. And as we see this India variant breaking, I'm taken back to last February when we saw the horrors coming out of Italy right before it hit the U.S. So as we look to opening in June, and we hear this variant is discovered in San Diego, it does give me pause for concern and no freak out, but it's scary because I don't think this thing's over yet when we hear the variants coming.
No, I don't think it's over yet either. Now, look, I understand everyone wants to return things back to normal. Look, I wanted to return things back to normal. The past 2 weekends, I went to 2 different barbecues. I managed to have myself and Daniel had a luncheon with E. Heller, and I went to a cafe as well. And I forgot how great it is. But we got to bring ourselves down back to reality, and we have to look at the fact that this virus hasn't been defeated yet. And I'm seeing a lot of people celebrate and say they're ready to have summer. And I'm with them too. I agree. But we haven't defeated this thing yet. And, Daniel has said it on the show. I said it on the show for Hard Lens Media. The worst thing that can happen is that there's a deadlier variation, like somebody wins the genetic lottery, the worst kind, to where we get a variation of COVID-19 that is devastating to all ages. And already what this virus has shown, especially in 2020, is that hospitals worldwide are ill prepared for a pandemic like this. And we still haven't beat it yet. And India has this disaster that's right now happening right before us. And now there's the same variation of that virus is in San Francisco or San Diego.
San Diego. Yeah.
San Diego.
Yeah. First report.
We're not done yet. So again, everyone, look, I understand that there are some people having their reservations for wearing for getting a vaccination. I get it. I understand it. But you know, if you're not going to get the vaccination, please wear a mask, wash your hands. If you still don't have to go outside, don't do it. And if you are getting vaccinated, and I know I got vaccinated, guess what? That still doesn't protect you because, you know, there's still a chance of this virus mutating, and you have to treat this thing as dangerous as it is. Wash your hands, put a mask on, be safe about it, because we're not out of the woods yet.
And that's the scary thing, despite the fact you've gotten your 2 vaccinations, as have I, as have millions of other people in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be enough to protect us as these new strains come out? That's what the unknown is. Why people have to be more careful, even though we're reopening. Everyone thinks, oh, it's going to go back to normal. It's going to be like the wild, wild west, like down in Florida. And I think it makes a lot of sense to err on the side of caution. I want to go out too. I want to see my friends. I've taken a very limited trips out, and usually in outdoor locations or around people that I know have been safe and careful, like my family or very few close friends. But I don't understand why people are so against erring on that side of precaution. And I look at it this way, Kit. If going out is it a necessity or is it an indulgence? If it's a necessity, it's a family event. If you have a doctor's appointment, you got to go shopping, maybe some very, very light social interaction, that's fine. But when I see the indulgence of people running out to enclosed restaurants or crowded places, that's where I think people are throwing the dice, and it's going to come up the wrong way.
I agree completely. And I think another thing too is that we have to look at people's, you know, we haven't seen something like this in our lifetime. And in a major metropolitan like the city of Chicago, you know, this is a huge city. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot to do in this city. And I think it's just, and this is just also impacts small towns too. It's fun to go out. And I think we're so accustomed to what we know. And this virus has shook everything up. In 2020, everyone being in lockdown, I think everyone's sort of like the mindset is, well, we're not in 2020. My new mindset is doing what I want to do, but there's a price to it. And the thing is, again, like to your concern, my concern is that we're going to get a deadlier variation of this virus, and we're going to have to go right back to, I don't know, do we go back to doing lockdowns? Because I don't know if that worked. But the thing is, the problem with what we did is that we did lockdowns, but people don't have any way to earn income.
That was the problem.
They're at risk of being evicted from their homes.
Yep.
And everyone's living close to the edge. I think like people are starting to snap where where what worked in 2020 might not work because people are just so tired and stressed out, and our government at the city or state level and federal level aren't helping us out.
And you and Daniel have reported on this a lot on the show. The fact that the government expected everyone to quarantine and go home, fine. They wanted businesses to close, fine. But then they don't give people stuck at home without their work the support financially, and then they don't give the full support to the businesses that have to close. I understand why people are anxious to open. I understand people have a work ethic and want to get back to work, and they want to get out there, and businesses have to survive. I think the failure has been at the national federal level, where they have not provided Americans, working class Americans, small businesses, the support that every other industrialized nation in the world has given their citizens to combat this, to stay home, get the numbers down, and then slowly resume. Everybody's anxious to get out because it's all tied into jobs, healthcare, and finances.
I have to agree 100%. A lot of the blame does land on the policies and decisions that are made by our elected officials. And, you know, universal basic income doesn't sound like a joke right now. Universal basic income sounds like a much needed necessity, and we need our continuous UBI. Other countries are still doing it. I hope we're able to defeat this thing, and I hope this crisis leaves India. But no matter what, as it stands right now, we're still in the merry months of May. June is just around the corner, and I guess Governor J.B. Pritzker seems to be dead set on reopening everything. So I guess that's what's going to happen here in the state of Illinois.
I think it was on the regular national show this week. Had you and Daniel reported on pharmaceutical companies profiting and I forgive me, I haven't fully followed what's been happening with medications getting to India, but wasn't there some controversy this week regarding India not being cut off from vaccinations, or America not passing the vaccine along freely to the rest of the world because of pharmaceutical companies?
As it stands right now, the Biden administration is pushing forward to trying to remove the patent protection on the vaccination so it's available for everyone. And there's been a lot of upheaval happening today because Merkel, the chancellor of Germany, was against the patent protection removal. So you would think that, the European leaders, yes.
Well, that's really odd. She's more of a progressively minded leader. I've seen, as far as policies that help people over in Germany and Europe. That's unfortunate to hear.
Well, the thing is, I wish that wasn't the case, but there's been a lot of back and forth. But also, I do want to point out too that as it stands right now, 5 hours ago, that the World Health Organization approved of the Chinese COVID vaccination as well. So that's an issue that we need to bring up as well. So it's I am concerned, but I am ever hopeful that maybe something will change.
In the meantime, get your vaccination, stay safe, wear your masks, and if you got to go out when it's necessary, not an indulgence. I mean, that's all I can tell my friends, family, and everybody watching. So moving on, we had some developments here in Chicago following up the Adam Toledo and now the Alvarez shooting. I want to start off with what happened with Kim Foxx's office. This from Block Club Chicago and Mauricio Pena. Remember when we reported on Kim Foxx's assistant mischaracterizing that Adam Toledo was threatening Officer Stillman before he was shot in March? Interesting developments in what happened with that particular assistant prosecutor in court. State's Attorney Kim Foxx's top assistant resigns as a result of Adam Toledo investigation was released. In the wake of the investigation, Kim Foxx's second in command, First Assistant Jennifer Coleman, resigned. Asked whether the resignation was related to the Toledo investigation, State's Attorney spokeswoman Sarah Sinvoic confirmed that their departure, but said the office cannot comment on personal matters. The office's internal investigation found a lack of oversight is the blame for the top prosecutor mischaracterizing what body cam footage showed in court. That prosecutor, though, is still on the job, even though Kim Foxx's assistant has resigned. Oreo, I got to do the news. Can you give me a second? I'm going to put you down, baby. You know what they say about cats and curiosity. He's very, very interested. According to the investigation, the prosecutor who was in court, Murphy, was placed on leave following the video's release, but is now back on the job, according to a press release from the state's attorney's office. Murphy did not intend to give the impression that Adam Toledo was holding a gun when shot. The language the attorney used in court was inartful, leaving an unintended impression, according to a press statement on the investigation's findings. The office released the findings of an internal investigation Wednesday morning, which found a breakdown of communication in how information was shared, resulted in Assistant State's Attorney James Murphy saying Toledo was holding a gun when he turned toward the officer who shot him. We all saw the video. In the breakdown of communication, information was not elevated to Fox before, nor in a timely manner of the bond hearing, the internal investigation showed. The tragedy of the death of 13-year-old Toledo has been clouded by the confusion and frustrations my office has caused, and for this, I apologize, Fox said in a prepared statement. It's not lost on me that our community is grieving, and I want to assure Adam's family and the public that my office is working diligently to investigate his death. At the bond hearing for Ruben Roman, the 21-year-old who police allege was with Toledo that night, Murphy said Toledo was holding a gun when he turned toward Officer Eric Stillman before Stillman shot Toledo. Fast forward to the results of the body cam in the Alvarez shooting. April 29th from Portage Park, again from Block Club Chicago. This video came out last week and we weren't on the air to cover it, but newly released video shows Chicago police shoot and kill 22-year-old Anthony Alvarez as he ran from them. Didn't turn around and aim the gun at them as we've heard. He was running away. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability released footage from police body camera videos and surveillance videos from the area Wednesday, the day after Alvarez's family was allowed to see the footage. Viewing the visuals of the shooting left Alvarez's relatives and their attorneys with more questions than answers, just like the Toledo shooting. Alvarez was shot and killed March 31st doing a foot chase blocks from his home in Portage Park. The shooting happened just days after Chicago police fatally shot 13-year-old Adam Toledo during a chase in Little Village. And I'm going somewhere with this, so let me just set everything up. Less than an hour after the footage was made public, Police Superintendent David Brown repeatedly refused to answer questions about why Alvarez was being pursued by police or why officers tried to stop him. Brown wouldn't say whether Alvarez was legally carrying the gun. When COPA released the video, accompanying reports provided no additional insight as to why officers tried to stop Alvarez. Brown said that information will be shared following a COPA investigation. Earlier in the day, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said Alvarez was shot after a traffic stop, but officials have provided no details on what led to the stop and subsequent shooting. Racial profiling? Racial profiling? We can't live in a world where a minor traffic offense resulted in someone being shot and killed. It shouldn't be acceptable to anyone, Lightfoot said at an unrelated press conference, as I've said before. It's one of the most dangerous activities that officers engage in. Dangerous for themselves, dangerous for the public, person being pursued, and dangerous for members of the public. In the video, Alvarez collapsed and asked, "Why are you shooting me?" "You had a gun," Officer Solano said. The officers then commanded Alvarez to stay on the ground as he twisted and groaned. "I'm going to die," Alvarez said as he tried to use his cell phone. Solano pulled out handcuffs and said, cuff him," as Alvarez laid on the ground. So much for the Second Amendment and the questions regarding whether or not he legally owned the firearm, why he was stopped, why he was chased, why he was shot. It's the same thing with Adam Toledo. It seems some cops see shooting fleeing perpetrators as their only option when they're not in danger. And this goes to the Fox story. They made a mistake in court reporting what happened before the video was forced to be released. Same as in the Toledo case. Now in the Alvarez case, we heard Alvarez was threatening the cops. The video showed him running and being shot. I read an interesting story, came out of, I think it was in China. When officers stop motorists that decide to take off in their cars, they don't shoot them with their guns. They shoot them with a special paint gun that they have that marks the car with a paint that's difficult to remove so that they can catch them later, instead of chasing after them or shooting them in their cars, as we saw with another case. I think it was several weeks ago when a motorist was stopped. So Lightfoot is demanding a new. So in the light of all this, after she campaigned 3 years ago on policies that were proposed to reduce police pursuit dangers, April 16th, Mayor Lightfoot demanded a new policy that would protect officers, suspects, and bystanders in what she called one of the most dangerous actions an officer can take, a foot pursuit. She ran on this 3 years ago. Kit, do you know what qualified immunity is?
For our viewers and subscribers, let us all know.
All right. Qualified immunity in the United States is a legal principle that grants government officials performing discretionary functions immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated, quote unquote, clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Okay. Well, while Lightfoot is talking about instituting these police pursuit policies, behind the scenes, she's quietly been lobbying against qualified immunity. She says one thing about reforming the police and then does another behind the scenes.
Well, that shouldn't surprise us right now with the actions of Mayor Lightfoot and her administration. I mean, breaking campaign promise after campaign promise. The same Mayor Lori Lightfoot that, again, is all for giving more of that federal relief money to the CPD and not giving it to working class citizens in this city where, again, even before the pandemic, people were working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and it still wasn't enough. So the fact that Mayor Lightfoot is, again, tiptoeing around qualified immunity and is now also deciding to lobby to, work in favor for the CPD, it shouldn't surprise us. But then again, too, look at how she's been handling this entire thing with Adam Toledo, as well as everything else that happened in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter protests. Her whole idea is raise the bridges up, protect the affluent areas of Chicago, and screw everyone else. I will be surprised if she actually thinks she has the audacity and the capability of running again in the next Chicago election cycle for the office of mayor. I just can't see it happening. She ran on promises. She ran on reform. But basically, she's acting just like Mayor Rahm Emanuel. And if that's too controversial for a lot of people, then look at the actions that she's been handling with these 2 police shootings. Look at how her administration handled everything in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter protests. It's disgusting. And even then, even earlier when we were covering the General Irons recycling plant, she ran a campaign on building a strong Chicago Environmental Protection Agency. Never followed through with it. And there's still lead in Chicago's drinking water. So again, Mayor Lightfoot doing these policies, if you look at her actions, look at her policies, she hasn't changed anything. And so we're still in this summer. We're still trying to find out as much as we can with what happened with these 2 shootings and try and make sure that the families get some justice. But this isn't over, and I have a bad feeling in my stomach that we're going to see something else similar like Adam Toledo or this other shooting take place during the summer here in Chicago. And the mayor is very tone deaf, and it's not that she's being told to be quiet. It's her own initiative. She's choosing to turn a blind eye. She's choosing to be deaf and not listening to the pleas of the people.
Well, and this is also the kind of duplicity we have from her that makes it impossible to trust her. She says one thing, does another. Same with the prosecutor's office releasing misstatements about victims in police shootings where they claim that the police were in danger. And then you've got this issue with the qualified immunity that relates to this next article. I'm going to paraphrase from Southside Weekly by Jim Daly on Lightfoot quietly lobbying for the qualified immunity. Despite wide-read grassroots and legislative momentum towards ending qualified immunity, the practice that protects police officers from being personally sued for civil rights violations, as we've seen with the Chauvin case and numerous police violence cases nationwide. Documents reviewed by the Weekly indicate Mayor Lori Lightfoot and her staff were already lobbying against efforts to ban the practice last summer. The document emails between Lightfoot and staff indicate in July of 2020, the mayor instructed her staff to gather data on qualified immunity to prepare for the push during budget to defund the police and efforts underway in Springfield, according to one. The mayor was likely referring to last year's efforts by grassroots groups and some city council members to reduce the CPD's outsized share of Chicago's budget, of which she gave half the federal COVID relief to, I think, to cover police overtime, as well as legislative efforts last year to enact statewide reforms in policing. The emails also revealed that civil rights lawsuits due to police misconduct have cost the city more than $500 million since 2009, while individual officers were responsible for paying about $2 million in settlements. The emails were published online by the group's distributed Denial of Secrets, the online website. The communications indicate the mayor's staff prepared data to present to U.S. Senator Dick Durbin's staff regarding those issues. In public, Lightfoot, who included police reform as a pillar of her 2017 campaign for mayor, has remained tight-lipped about qualified immunity. Privately, her staff were apparently lobbying Durbin's office to convince him qualified immunity is not a roadblock to holding police officers accountable for misconduct. I don't understand how. 17% of federal civil rights lawsuits were settled between 2009 and 2019 for a total of more than, ready? You're sitting down, $500 million, according to the summary. Total damages paid arising from FCRL cases between 2009 and 2019 cost $511,878,670. I'm sorry, between 2009, wrong math, $511,878,676. Taxpayers shouldered that cost. The total civil rights punitive damages, which cops are personally responsible for paying, were $2,014,500, the summary says. The bottom line is, due to state law and the collective bargaining agreement, cops rarely feel the sting of their own misbehavior in their own pocketbooks, Frisch wrote, which leads to everything we're seeing with shoot first, ask questions later. We're not going to be held accountable. We're not going to lose our pensions. Hey, behind the scenes, the mayor's on our side. This is okay.
Again, I can't help but think of in 2018. Again, I talked about this story, but on our YouTube channel, Hard Lens Media, we did a coverage. It was about 30 minutes, maybe an hour long, of the exoneration project on how 15 black men were exonerated from crimes that they did not commit and were basically put into a very unreasonable situation by 4 Chicago police officers. False evidence was put on them. They were forced to basically go behind bars, be in jail, and they were constantly harassed by the police. They were constantly being shaken down with money. It was just, this was in 2018 during Rahm Emanuel's administration. When Mayor Lightfoot came onto the scene, she promised reform. She did all these things, and she won a huge landslide victory that was very historic in this city. She won the entire city. I think 70%, maybe 75% of the city voted for her. And of course, the voter turnout was low, but at the end of the day, she won the north, south, west side of the city of Chicago, and she hasn't delivered on anything. And that's a sad fact.
It's the problem. I just had an opportunity to watch the Nat Geo documentary by Steve James, who directed the very, very well-known award-winning film Hoop Dreams, called City So Real, that covered the last election cycle. Have you had an opportunity to watch it yet?
I would be more than happy to watch it. It's called City So Real.
City So Real. It's a 5-part documentary on the last election cycle here in Chicago, where they went out and covered all the campaigns. They covered the Chicago clown car of the mayoral campaigns everywhere. And it was interesting because I thought that my understanding of the show was that the show ended with Lightfoot's victory, but they did do a follow-up episode covering how Lightfoot has handled all of the crises in Chicago, from COVID to the police shootings to the George Floyd riots last summer after he was shot. And they do some sit-down interviews with Lightfoot, and, you know, she's very well composed. She's very well spoken. She's very commanding, but, you know, no matter what she says, it's just in such complete contrast to what's going on all across the city. And excuse me, I don't, you know, I talk about the police violence issue a lot because it's not because I dislike cops. I don't hate cops. I hate bad cops, but I have a lot of regard for law enforcement. I have a lot of regard. I think it's a very sacred job. I think it's a privilege. And when we see so many bad apples, as you also like to note, spoiling the bunch, I can't help but want to report on it regularly, because, to quote you on the regular shows, we're talking about everything, Kit. We have to be better. The police have to be better. I want to trust the police department. I want our citizens to trust the police department. But when you see this constant abuse of power and the constant lack of accountability and the constant cover-ups that literally pit the police against us, it's a divided community. We're supposed to be working together, but there's this attitude, I think, in law enforcement that is cultural. As we saw in a story I reported on the national show with the lady who had dementia in Colorado, and the cops laughing about it on video behind the scenes when she was in her cell after they broke her, they injured her shoulder, and they just laugh about it. It's like we're just to be, I don't know, like corralled like cows at their whim as far as how they can carry out their jobs. And I don't even think that in that case it relates to bad police training. I think it relates to a really toxic culture in police departments that do tend to, I think, instill an attitude that it's them against us instead of it's supposed to be them with us.
You know, again, Mayor Lightfoot promised these reforms, but again, she's giving those resources out to the CPD and nothing's changing. She made all these promises. And, you know, to your point, you know, are there good cops? Yeah, but they don't last long in that career. There's a good chance some of them become corrupt themselves. They quit, or, you know, I don't know. We've seen a few cops try and be whistleblowers, and it's either they have to move out of that state quickly, or, you know, they have to, or either that something else happens to them. And I don't want to say it out loud on YouTube because of YouTube censorship, but I think we all kind of get the big picture about what's happening. And it's, you know, the fact that you even brought up that documentary was that whole 20 mayoral candidates that we had. I'm gonna have to check it. City's so real.
Great. It's really good.
I'm curious because I'm wondering if they're going to cover events where we were covering at as Heartlands Media when we were on radio. But
I think they did. I would imagine, yeah, they were covering a lot of the same stuff you guys were.
I wonder if we
You
make
might
a cameo. I wonder if we do make a cameo. That's something I'm gonna have to check out. But you know, I'm wondering now for 2023. Will we see a repeat of what we saw in 2019? A whole collage, a whole lineup of different candidates running for the office of mayor? Because I can't see Mayor Lightfoot trying to run for re-election. Not after all the promises she broke.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it's because of the trust issue. She's violated so much public trust that, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who emerges, because a lot of the candidates last cycle were also compromised by their relationships to Ed Burke. I think we had Perky, Susan Mendoza, and I think Vallis was also kind of related to some of the Burke Mendel.
We had. Let's see if I can still remember some of the mayoral candidates. There was one that really stood out, but he dropped out early, and I thought he had the most potential. There was Troy LaRaviere.
Yeah,
he was the college principal who, not college, public school, Chicago Public Schools principal, who basically stood in solidarity and helped support the Bernie Sanders campaign. But he dropped out. And I think personally, I think that was a smart decision because the race was so crowded. And I think we both know how expensive these elections can really get here in Chicago and just how much treasury you need. There was Jamal Green, Amara Enya. Let's see who else I remember. I know one of the dailies ran.
Willie Wilson will be back with his henchman, Ricky Hendon.
Yes.
You should see the way they covered stuff. Every time Willie Wilson was going somewhere, whether it was hot chocolate or going to a church and telling everyone, I can't tell you how to vote, but I'd never leave a church without leaving a donation, and I'm going to give a $5,000 check. I mean, it's just Chicago at its finest, right?
Willie Wilson was my favorite. That was my favorite. I actually
most entertaining, certainly.
Well, I'll hold on. I think because I don't want to get us too off subject, but
okay, no, it's on subject. It's on.
I interviewed. I think this was the third official mayoral debate, and this was the debate in which I think the day after or on that evening, Mayor Rahm Emanuel made his announcement that he's not running for a third term. Because in that video, there's a collage of I ask all the candidates from Lightfoot to Willie Wilson and all the others, like, where is Mayor where is Mayor? I was about to say where's Mayor Lightfoot? Freudian slip right there. Where is Mayor Rahm Emanuel? And they're all giving their different opinions. And Willie Wilson's was the best. That was the best.
What did he say?
Maybe 10-minute interview I did. He said, "Well, if I was Rahm Emanuel, I wouldn't show up here either. Everyone hates him. Look." He shut down 50 public schools. He shut down half the mental health facilities. And then he paused and said, Rahm Emanuel should be in that mental health facility because there's something wrong with him up here mentally. That's what he said to me verbatim. Yeah. I'm going to send you that YouTube link. It was best interview. Like I kept a straight face, but after a while, I had to pull myself to the side. That was the funniest thing I ever heard. Willie Wilson will always have a number one spot. And then I think it was during another debate where the legalization of, I guess, the emerald green plant. I think we all know what it is. Again, got to be careful because of YouTube. But he said, you might as well legalize it. Everyone's doing it anyways. that was just
Look, he's honest. And I don't dislike Willie Wilson. He's colorful. He's a character. A lot of stuff that he said, I agree with. He's just got to stop handing out money because it just makes him look like he's all about bribing people. You know, giving out money to get votes or influence people, even though he says that's not what it's about. He doesn't have to do that if he's actually saying things that people agree with. So that's just me looking at the ethics of how he was campaigning, because he was doing it outside. He was giving out the free hot chocolate outside, really close to the polling places, and they're coming out and saying, "Willie, you got to move the truck. You got to move the truck across the street. You can't be right up here like giving people hot chocolate when they walk in." So. Yeah, and
personally,
Bill Daley.
I want to see him run again. I want to see him run again.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will, and I'm sure one of the dailies will come out again too.
That is to be expected. If okay, and for our viewing audience that doesn't live in Chicago, always expect a daily to run.
Yeah,
always expect it. I mean, there's never. I'll be surprised if we see an election cycle where a daily is not running for a seat here in the city of Chicago.
They were the dynasty, and they feel that they're entitled. They crawl out from under the rock every election, and Richard J. did a lot of damage with that parking meter deal and other things that we're still not recovered from a budgetary fiscal perspective.
Yeah.
All right.
For the green monsters. The green monsters.
The green monsters. Yeah. So we're moving into the last 10 minutes of the show, and we're going to go to the Lakeshore Drive story, which we opened the show with my little supercut edit of Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable Drive. I'm looking at the Facebook poll right now. 88% of 44 engagements are voting for Lakeshore Drive. 13% are voting for Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable Drive. So to bring people up to speed on what's been going on in City Council, the question as to whether Lakeshore Drive will be renamed DuSable Drive. The name change was approved by key city committee members. The name change will now go before the full city council over Mayor Lori Lightfoot's objections. And this is from Justin Lawrence reporting from Block Club Chicago. A proposal to rename Chicago's iconic Lakeshore Drive after the city's first non-Indigenous settler was approved by a key city committee Thursday over the objection of Mayor Lori Lightfoot. After a tumultuous meeting that included accusations of racism, the Transportation Committee unanimously approved the proposal, first introduced by Alderman David Moore, 17th in 2019, of the 17th Ward. If approved by the full City Council, 17 miles of Outer Lakeshore Drive from Hollywood Avenue to East 67th Street would be renamed for Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable, a black man believed to be of Haitian descent. DuSable arrived here establishing a trading post and farm at the mouth of the Chicago River in 1779. Ahead of the vote, the committee took an hour-long detour to discuss a proposed last-minute amendment to the proposal from the Lightfoot administration that clarified the name change and extended it further south than Moore's ordinance required. An infuriated Moore rejected the changes, calling the move racist bullshit and a last-day game plan from opponents to maneuver against the ordinance he's tried to pass for more than a year. Alderman Jeanette Taylor of the 20th Ward agreed, saying Lightfoot's administration could have conferred with Moore before the meeting instead of bringing changes to the committee and blindsiding the lead sponsor. This is just very disrespectful to Alderman Moore and Alderman Sophia King, and it just seems real racist to me. This is the founder of Chicago, and all of a sudden now you all throw a monkey wrench in it. This is why our city doesn't move, because we work in silos, she said. I would say you could easily solve that with a referendum vote, but the aldermen aren't interested in doing that. DuSable settled where the Chicago River and Lake Michigan meet in 1779, establishing a trading post and farm before selling the property in 1800 and moving to the port of St. Charles. But DuSable's successful role in developing the Chicago River settlement was little recognized until the mid-20th century, the proposed ordinance says. Renaming the drive would help educate the very few people, especially tourists and new Chicagoans, about DuSable's life and importance to the city, the ordinance says. The addition to a school in the DuSable Museum of African American History in Hyde Park, a small monument sits near the DuSable Bridge on Michigan Avenue. At a press conference, Lightfoot didn't explicitly oppose the name change, but said she hoped aldermen would consider alternative proposals to honor DuSable. DuSable has not been properly recognized, in my view, as the founder of the city, she said. She proposed investing in DuSable Park near Navy Pier. The Chicago Park District is renovating the land east of Lakeshore Drive as part of the development that will plug the hole at the former Chicago Spire site. We've got the resources to make that happen. We will then connect up both physically and thematically that park with turning the Riverwalk into the DuSable Riverwalk with 3 statues of DuSable and his wife, Kitawaha. So, the city councils, everybody's screaming racist. Which way? When the ordinance says it's to educate tourists and other Chicagoans about DuSable's life and importance to the city, I didn't know that's what streets were supposed to do. I thought that they were, look, this is my unpopular opinion, okay? Lakeshore Drive unites the city from north to south, south to north. It borders a lake that is for everybody. I understand the alderman wanting to send a message and educate people about DuSable's importance to the city. I get that. But when we've been screaming about that genocidal maniac Christopher Columbus, that Columbus Drive was named after, why not rechristen Columbus Drive and get rid of his name and give DuSable that drive? Why do you have to rename a landmark stretch of road that borders the Lake Shore Drive, to push, unpopular opinion, what I think is a virtue signaling proposal? And I hesitate saying that, Kit? Because are people going to start calling me racist for having that opinion? I don't think I am. I think simply it's a big question as to what message are you sending as far as like renaming a stretch of road that unites the city when you're leaning towards, well, we have to name it after this person because of if you don't, then you're a racist.
Well, I can actually give a pretty good counter proposal. Look, that statue of Christopher Columbus was taken down. Put a statue of Jean-Baptiste DuSable there. He's the founder of our. He's the first non-native resident in Chicago, or what would be eventually Chicago. Have his statue there. Lakeshore Drive. It's always been called that. And there's one thing about Chicagoans is that we're all kind of stubborn. And once I've noticed this. Case in point. The Sears Tower. It doesn't have that name. It used to be called the Willis Tower, but now it's called something else. But
Sears Tower to us,
it's a Sears Tower. That's what I think a lot of people call it. Now, again, maybe times change. People have adapted to the new name because I know it's not called the Willis Tower anymore. It's called something else, I think. But I mean, it's the Sears Tower. It's a Sears Tower. That's the Sears. Just like there's
Chicago tradition. It's a historical Chicago tradition.
Just like for me, like with White Sox Park, it's Comiskey Park to me. I mean, I'm going to call it White Sox Park. I'm not going to call it the Cell or Better Rate Field. I mean, that's dumb. Those names are dumb. I'm going to call it something I know. These are two things: White Sox Park or Comiskey Park. That's what it is, and I'm not going to have a debate with anyone about it. Lakeshore Drive. It's one thing that won't change are the accidents, the drunk drivers, and that S curve. The S curve. Everyone. So, I mean, I think it's better than I think it would be better to, rename streets, that have been named after horrible individuals. I mean, that we've have Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus did a lot of terrible things.
Yep.
Rename that street. That statue that was taken down, put a statue of Jean-Baptiste DuSable right there. And that would work. But I think also, the city council is having a fight over a name of a stretch of road. And instead, they're not really focusing on, hey, how do we get universal basic income for our citizens across the city of Chicago? Hey, what are we going to do about the lead that's in our drinking water? Hey, what are we going to do about making sure that the mental health facilities are still funded? And all the other things that the the people of Chicago desperately need. So, I've been a resident of the city my whole life, and I'm going to call certain landmarks what they are. And, it's a Lakeshore Drive. It's Lakeshore Drive. It's what I've always known about. But if it's called Jean-Baptiste DuSable Drive, okay, fine. But I think the city council can focus more on some bigger issues, policy issues, instead of identity politics. And I understand why identity politics is important. Yeah. I get it. It's very important that we do address the issues of the racism and discrimination that has impacted this country for decades. We have to have that conversation. But for elected officials to be focused more on the name instead of talking about universal basic income, getting rid of the environmental polluters on the south and west side, getting rid of the lead that is still in our drinking water, making sure our communities are safe, make sure we have real police accountability. These are the major priorities. I think we could change the name of a certain location further on down the road. No pun intended with the road, but let's just, focus on bigger issues that could help people that are right now wondering, how am I going to put food on the table? Do I still have a roof over my head? Because driving to this studio, whether it's through Lakeshore Drive or on the highway, I'm still seeing the same thing. Businesses being closed down.
Tent cities.
People out there on the streets. I'm seeing that the bigger priorities for me is, how are people going to survive? I understand renaming a location. For that, I'm cool with that. Let's have that conversation. But I think that's something further on down the road and should not be a major headline story. City of Chicago, council leaders, mayor, we want UBI. We want lead out of our drinking water. And I've named all the other issues that we need to have. I think this is a big fight over nothing.
Distraction.
And if it does get named, I'm not going to care. I don't care, period, what it's going to be called, because I'm going to call it what I call in my heart. And, it is what it is. But I think this is a distraction, like you pointed out. And it's really not the major issue we should be focused on.
No, I agree. And, to your point about Comiskey Park, we had the same issue when Marshall Fields was bought out by Macy's, and Macy's came in and we're going to rename everything, forgetting about the traditions that Marshall Fields served the city with. And it's interesting because Alderman Moore actually spoke to this point. He says, we had no problem changing White Sox Park, very iconic, and several other icons. No problem. So marketing should not stop us from taking this moment of reckoning in our world, in our country, and in our city to do what's right. I think that kind of speaks to the tone deaf of Alderman Moore, because a majority of Chicagoans haven't been on board with the renaming of Comiskey Park. They were never on board with the renaming of the Sears Tower. They were never on board with the renaming of Marshall Fields. So when you've got the aldermen spending so much time and money on this identity politics issue, instead of doing everything you just stated, which is what we want them to do, it does seem to be an exercise in virtue signaling and identity politics that is dividing us more than it's uniting us. I'll always call it Lakeshore Drive. I think if they had the guts to actually listen to people, they'd put it up for a referendum vote instead of shoving it down our throats, because social media, Facebook, Reddit, everybody's up in arms about, why do you need to change this iconic landmark, Lakeshore Drive, when you can honor this man in so many other ways that are not dividing people in the city? And when you've got progressive aldermen pushing it, and I like to think we're progressives, and it kind of shames me that this is what you're focused on.
Yeah, priorities. And the thing is, look, Jean-Baptiste DuSable was a pioneer. He did a lot of historic things here in the city of Chicago, or what would soon become the city of Chicago. And he needs to be recognized as one of the major founders of this city.
And he has been, but he has been named. There are things named after him, and it's we're ignoring
exactly. But my point is that I think we both know the kind of cesspool that Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube can be. We and Reddit and all this other stuff. I think putting this man's name and legacy into identity politics is going to tarnish his legacy name, because he has done great things.
Absolutely.
And he should not be mixed in with that. Instead, I'm looking in the live stream chat. Jim C says, change Columbus Drive. Okay, call Jean-Baptiste DuSable Drive. That's fine. That statue that was taken down, put his statue up there, or do something. But with Lakeshore Drive, was as iconic as it is, it's like priorities. City Council, you know that there are bigger issues: police reform, getting money out of politics, getting the lead out of our drinking water, making sure our public schools are funded, making sure the Chicago Teachers Union are taken care of, making sure that people are not being evicted from their homes and small businesses are taken care of. I'm going to say this again: universal basic income, universal basic income, universal basic income. And hey, what's happening with our TIF funds? That's a big issue. I like how this has distracted a lot of people from the major issues that really need to be addressed. But if it gets named that way, I don't care. If it remains the same, I don't care either.
With all the empty properties we see across the city, that we are still seeing tent cities and no relief for homeless people is also, it's a crime. Anyway, let's end the show on some kind of a positive note. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the things that are happening over at Hardlands Media? I know there are a lot of exciting events coming up for you guys. You had this great interview with Max Kaiser, I think about a week ago, and you've got some other, Jimmy Dore, I heard on today's show.
Well, let me go ahead and explain what exactly is happening with Hardlands Media. So, yes, it is true. I interviewed Max Kaiser. He's on RT America. I had an interview with him about Bitcoin and e-currency. It was a very thought-provoking interview. Please check it out. It's available on YouTube and on our Odyssey platform. The Odyssey channel, in case for our viewers who don't know, it's basically we copied all of our older work from Hardlands Media and our new stuff, and it's uploaded there because, there's a good chance our YouTube channel could be taken down. A lot of our fellow colleagues are being deleted. Their content's being removed. So Odyssey is our backup in case we're ever removed off of YouTube for Hardlands Media. I also did an interview with Robbie Yeager, who did a fantastic investigative journalism piece on Substack, as well as been on numerous other channels about the Colonial Pipeline burst that's happening in North Carolina. He was on Jimmy Dore's show, Lee Camp's show, our show. Please check it out. It's available on YouTube and Odyssey as well. I also want to make an announcement. On May 22nd at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, KRTD Media is going to have Jimmy Dore as one of the panelists for its U.S. Solutions Summit. And this is going to be this is going to be an all-day summit meeting. Hardlands Media is going to be part of it. The crew from the Convo Couch is going to be part of it. Chicago's very own Jimmy Dore and Seth Zaramino are going to be part of it. Graham Elwood, another resident of Illinois.
He'll
be here. He's also been on the Jimmy Dore show. Ron Placone, he will be there. Sahid Buttar, who is a congressional progressive candidate who's running against Nancy Pelosi.
Who feeds people. She feeds people. Remember, she feeds everyone.
Just calm down.
Calm down.
We have also Mark Charles, independent presidential candidate, will be part of it, and there will be numerous others. And again, it's going to happen on Saturday, May 22nd, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We here at Hard Lens Media are really excited for this because this is a huge panel to be part of. It's a major town hall, and it's being hosted by KRTD Media. And if you want to learn more about it, go to ussolutionssummit.com. We also retweeted it on our Twitter account, Hard Lens Media, so be sure to check it out. I'm really excited for it. Plus, at the end of the summer, early fall, Hard Lens Media is also doing a major announcement as well. I got to keep quiet about it, but it's a pretty big deal. Jerry, you know the inside baseball, but even you got to be quiet about it too, buddy. Okay?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I know nothing. I see nothing. I say nothing.
There we go.
Until you approve it.
Oh, yes. And also E. Heller brings up another Chicago resident will also be part of it. Apologies for forgetting his name, Justin Jackson, who's also doing a fantastic job. We you know, what I realize is that this U.S. Solutions Summit's got a lot of people from Chicago in it. Graham Elwood, Jimmy Dore, Hard Lens, Justin Jackson. Chicago's taken over.
We're a radical city.
Yeah. Hey, don't mess with us. The spirit of Al Capone guides us always.
And proud of it. Proud of our radical roots for change.
And also, it's very important to note that if you want to learn more about Chicago Corner is the YouTube channel that's leading the way because we're doing a lot of good stuff here.
We are. And I got to tell you, I'm so excited to be a member of the Hard Lens family now with Chicago Corner, and I'm so excited for the things coming up. We got a lot of exciting things happening, and I also want to encourage our viewers. I say this on our Facebook. I say it on my social media. We're hopefully going to get the Chicago Corner Twitter up pretty soon too. If you have stories from your neighborhoods, if you have a webcam and want to come on the show and talk about something, email us, PM us. You can reach me, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv. Send us your news stories from your neighborhood, even if it's about the arts, if it's about something happening with other Chicagoans, if it's about activist events. Let us know what's going on, because even though we are dedicated to reporting important stories that come from sources like Block Club Chicago, good stories, Chicago stories, we also want to hear stories that mainstream news might not cover from our neighborhoods as we unite the city online virtually from the north to the south and the south to the north, as Lakeshore Drive does. So on that note, Kit, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight. It's always wonderful to wrap back and forth with you and have our guests in the live stream and share some of their comments. Anything else you want to leave on?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Look, I know, again, huge shout out to the Chicago Block Club. They're doing a lot of great work. Yeah. If you don't live in the Chicagoland area, please, everyone, check them out. They do fantastic, real journalism here in this city that's really long overdue. I mean, right now, they're speaking truth to power. And we here at Chicago Corner, look, the whole idea for this channel is to shine a light on the city. And yes, we do cover some very difficult stories to talk about. But I think a lot of people need to understand that there's more to this city. There's a lot of good people that are trying to do good and really making this city into something else. Don't believe the corporate media propaganda. Yes, there's always something bad happening everywhere, but Chicago gets a bad rap. And that's the whole purpose of this channel, is to make something better and to show this city as a better city and to build a better future. And I really believe in what this YouTube channel is doing, Chicago Corner. I'm so glad to be a co-host for this and to be helping out the team here doing the right thing.
I was asked by E. Heller if I can share the video one more time. I'm seeing if I can get it up on the screen here. You know what? It's going to be difficult. And the other thing I'm worried about is if I do show the entire video, make sure I get a copyright problem. But I will tell you this, E. Heller, go to Nightstar Productions channel, my channel, and that's where I have the full Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable Drive by Eliota, Haynes, and Jeremiah video. It's easy to find. Just YouTube search Nightstar Productions. You'll find it at the top of the list there. I want to encourage everyone, if we're going to all reopen as Governor Pritzker wants us to in June, get your vaccinations. Be careful.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Travel out of necessity, not indulgence. And as always, most importantly, be safe. Good night, Chicago.